Hey guys, today I'm going to be trying a new song. This is Holy Roller by Spiritbox. It was requested by my friend Mandi, who wanted to hear what it sounds like in false chord rather than the original fry scream. So as usual, I'll sing the song first and then afterwards we'll have a talk about it. Holy roller sits in my garden, we fled. Blood into wine, take my body instead. Holy roller sits in the garden, we fled. Blood into wine, take my body instead. Holy roller. Stand to the left of night in paradise. Holy Ghost's will. Blood of blood, living to grip the Nazarene. Crown of God, you bear it then to come and rapture me. Holy roller sits in the garden, we fled. Blood into wine, take my body instead. Holy roller sits in the garden, we fled. Blood into wine, take my body instead. Stand to the left of me in paradise. Holy Ghost will fade into oblivion like a blade, falling slowly, 'cause they're holy down. When I die, you won't pray for me. That's when I learn to cut my ties. When I die, you won't pray for me. That's when I learned to cut my ties. Stand to the left of me in paradise. Holy Ghost will fade into oblivion like a blade, falling slowly down. Okay, so Holy Roller by Spiritbox. I know my approach is very different, but I hope you found that interesting anyway. Spiritbox. I don't really listen to them, but I've sort of been vaguely aware that they're around. But the reason I did the cover is, as I said before, because my friend Mandi, we met on a vocalists sort of forum on Facebook, and we're basically the opposite kinds of screamers. She does fry scream and I do false chord, and so we share notes about, different things that we're finding with our voices, trying to learn from each other, but it seems like we're kind of, very much in our own techniques, and it's hard to just get your head around how to do the other scream. Like for me, fry scream, it sounds dumb in my voice, but in her voice it just naturally sounds amazing. I'm very much a false chord, like, rah! I just can't get the fry scream to sound like something that I like. I don't know. I love Mandi's fry scream. I just can't do it. She's got a YouTube channel, and she did a cover of Holy Roller, and asked me to do it in my version. Now, if you go and check out her channel, at the moment she's actually pregnant and still screaming, so wow. I've never been pregnant, so I don't know what that's like, but I think I would probably just roll over and die rather than keep screaming, so good on her for doing that. You can sort of see the difference between our voices. So she's doing fry screaming, which is what the original song was. What's the name of the girl who does it? I think Courtney or something. So she's got the same technique, but mine's very different, and that's why she asked me to do it, just to hear what would this sound like in a false chord? Now, when it comes to vocal terminology, it can get heaps confusing. I've seen an analysis of the original vocalist claiming that her low is a false chord, which I'm not sure because there's not really like a difference in tonality between the two. Like, it's really obvious when I do fry scream versus false chord, but I don't know. Like, you get some vocalists who sound like they're doing both at the same time, so I feel like there's a bit more of a spectrum going on, and to say just by hearing what someone's doing, very difficult. And then with false chord, I've mentioned before, I've got two ways of doing it. In the past, if you've seen This Fire Burns, my cover of that, I was using more of the breath distortion. Well, depending on who you ask, I'm told it's breath distortion. Whereas for this one, I was using more of my grittier, newer way of doing false chord, so you get a bit of a difference in the tone there. I find with the grittier kind of false chord, it's easier to do lows and highs and shift around with that, and also uses less air. So I don't think I could have pulled this song off in my old breath distortion. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I try not to distort my little microphone here, but like, so my old way of doing it is more like and I run out of air pretty quickly, especially I'm sitting down, but whatever. And then the newer way, different tones, hopefully that comes through. Sometimes when I record the two different styles, it's hard to hear the difference, and I'm just like, oh, what's going on there? I think part of it is because I'm still using the mechanisms of the breath distortion to add into the false chord, because like pure false chord, I'm told, sounds more like throat singing, which I struggle with. Like, I've demoed it before, I'm not going to embarrass myself again with that. But yeah, it's sort of like you for the grittier one, in theory, you mix that throat singing false chord with the breath distortion false chord. I don't know, other people have explained it in a way that I find painful. I find it easy to just to go with what works for me and like the way I understand it. But hey, if you guys are into that kind of stuff, maybe that helps. Also, I'm sorry to come back to the shitty webcam instead of continuing the video on my phone like I used to. But since I recorded Voices, which is the last cover I posted, like I recorded that last year. And this year, my phone had to be repaired and the sound on it is just terrible. So like you won't know because I recorded the cover on my good microphone again. But I know, to set that up, to do longer videos and all that, it's too much of a pain, so we'll stick to this. And if I just use the phone's audio, it's annoying and it's off balance, so yeah, we're here. Also here I can see my notes. I wrote some notes on like Patreon a little while ago when I did like a practice run through, and yeah, so I try and remember what else I need to say about this cover that might be interesting to you guys. But yeah, so alright, false chord. I can pull it off in false chord. Obviously, you hear the difference in the sound. Another thing, though, is like, this is probably at the edge of how long I can do a scream for. I imagine for the original vocalist, because she's doing fry screaming, she does seem to be doing like an intense sort of fry scream. Like, there's different variations of it. My crappy fry scream, if I'm doing that, it sounds so bad, especially after I've warmed my voice up. I just completely, it turns to shit so fast. But if I do that style, I could go on a note forever. I feel like the original vocalist is using a bit more of a full-on fry scream, and maybe she loses a bit of length. I don't know, she doesn't really do any hugely long screams. Maybe she does in other songs, but not in this one. So this one, some of the growls, I think like, I stop just before she stops because that is the end of my air, and if I keep trying to go, it's not gonna sound like anything. So this is the limits of my false chord in terms of breath. But I'm able to pull this one off. I think also like for some of the things, she's actually cutting her screams short on purpose, and I think that's a rhythmic choice. I found it hard to get my head around like when do I stop the scream. Originally when I was trying to do it, I was trying to like drag out the screams as long as possible, and then I realized no, actually so she's stopping before that, and I think that actually improved the tone, because before I was doing the scream and the tone would really sort of yeah, and it just doesn't sound nice. So how would I demonstrate that? Like stand. I think I was doing that, whereas if you cut it off earlier, it's easier not to get that kind of drop. So that was an interesting thing. But like I, as someone who doesn't listen to Spiritbox, and I don't like, I only learned this cover for my friend after she asked me. So I've only had, I don't know when I recorded my practice, but I've only had maybe like a week or two really to stuff around with it, maybe. But is that, yeah, looks like roughly a week since I posted that one on Patreon. So if I had more time, I'd probably like try and actually count out how long to do the screams. On the other hand, though, my interpretation I don't really need to copy, but that's just an interesting thing. If you are someone who's trying to nail this cover perfectly, pay attention to the lengths of the screams. Like it's not just like go forever. It's not stop heaps short. It's somewhere in the middle, and it does feel like it has. I think she made the rhythmic choice, but I don't really know what the band, what goes on with them, but that's something I found. Anyway, so that helped me actually do it. I don't usually do a lot of full on growly screams. Like this had no singing, just talking and screaming. Unusual for me to do that. I usually like to have a little bit of singing in my own songs, but kind of fun. Like, yeah, I can still do this. Cool. Yeah, what else have I written? Oh yeah, so in the original version, she sort of goes into, like, you can hear a little bit of her real voice before she ramps up into a fry scream. I think there are a few moments you can hear some of my real voice in this, but it's not in the same way. And I think what she's getting is just an artifact of fry screaming. No, you don't hear it in everyone, but particularly in like some of those hardcore screamers, maybe they're trying to do it as an emotion thing. To me, I don't really like it so much. I think she does it nicely in that, but in some of the hardcore screamings, it just makes them sound more whiny. But then sometimes the lyrics are whiny, so hey. But yeah, I don't know if I can approximate. Like she like till the left of my. It's sort of like got a bit of that kind of a voice before it goes into like fry scream, which I suck at. Hope that makes sense. I think that's harder to do when you're shifting from false chord because just the nature of the anatomy. So with fry screaming, you're using your real vocal cords, and so when you're like, it's easier to go from normal voice into fry scream because you're using the same anatomy. Whereas with false chord, I'm using a little bit higher up, the thicker flaps for that in your throat, and harder to make the transition from voice to that. Like I'm better at it than I used to be, but to do it in the middle of such an intense song with so much screaming, I don't know. And I don't know that it would work with the tone of the false chord. So that's a thing. Yeah, anyway. Need a drink because yeah, when you're singing you gotta keep up on the water. Anyway, so this is my first cover with that really gritty false chord scream, and I'm actually really happy that Mandi asked me to do this because, I mean, for one thing, I've been so lazy this year. I haven't done a whole lot of singing practice or anything. I've just sort of been like, bleh. But also earlier in the year, I actually joined a black metal band, and that used to have a fry screamer with a very high pitched fry scream. And I was just like, how am I going to slot into this band and sound anywhere like doing his old songs? How am I even going to get that to happen? And I think in my old false chord, it just wouldn't have happened. But with the new one, I can go high. So like if I try and do high in the old false chord, so, raw, yeah, it's tricky. In this one, yeah, yeah, you can sort of play around with the tones a little bit more. But the other thing about joining that band is it forced me to practice the grittier false chord a lot, and I did get better just like practicing their songs, which were quite difficult at the start, but I sort of got into it once I got used to it. But I quit the band when they changed direction, long story, but I won't say too much about it because, I still like some of the guys. There's only one guy who really had a serious issue. But yeah, no, just people have creative differences. One of them took it as like a personal thing. Just what can you do about that? Anyway, no, so it was kind of a shame because I was like, oh, I've done all this practice and I've got, what have I got to show for it? Like I've got some lyrics I wrote, but got to rewrite the music underneath it. The only other time that I've really done the gritty false chord is in my song The Truth, which I still haven't finished recording because I was recording and then I discovered that I could do the really low growl, like and so I'm like, maybe I want that instead of just doing everything at the same mid-scream. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my first like thing I'm putting out there with a whole bunch of the gritty false chords, so yay for like progress and all that. And it's not black metal. Black metal is not really my style. I have had a few offers for black metal, and I'm just like, no. And I think the high fry screen works really well for black metal. I'm not sure that false chord, like if I did the high all the time, but I don't want to do the high all the time. I like my mids and my lows. Another interesting thing, now that I think of it, while I was doing that cover, I don't know if you guys were paying attention to my screen on my MacBook. It would, like, you could see the waveforms, and if you notice, when I'm doing the sort of mid screams, it's really loud. Like, I tried adjusting the settings, but even standing back from the microphone, I just think I underestimated how loud that is. But when I get up to the lower bits, Holy Ghost will, I think that's more, I was probably doing more breath distortion, and also that's an easier pitch, like it just sits nicely in my voice. So like with the other stuff, stand, I have to put a bit more like effort into it, and then afterwards, like, Holy Ghost will, that's really easy for me. And so you actually also notice, like, getting that tone, I don't need as much air, I don't need as much volume. I think I probably do use a fair bit of air actually, but I don't need the volume to get it. I don't need to push it out in the same way. And also when I'm doing the lower stuff, then the volume goes a bit more, although my angle against the microphone might have, like, because I'm sort of pulling my chin in to get that low sound, pulling my chin in, and like I'm also like, there's a change in what I'm doing inside my mouth, maybe with like tongue position and where things are, and then my mouth is very small. But I think because I'm pulling my chin in, I'm sort of looking down a bit low, so instead of looking right at the microphone, maybe I aimed the sound a bit too low, and that might have affected the volume. But I know with the Holy Ghost swill, that bit is really easy, and so that's why that one's not so loud. You don't always have to aim for volume with these things. I like to be loud, but if you can tone it back, sometimes that's good. And yeah, Holy Ghost will, if I put more air into that, does it change the pitch? Let me, Holy Ghost will, it just uses more air for no gain. I think it doesn't sound any better. So yeah, if you can relax, that's fun. Anyway, speaking of changing pitch and like mouth shapes and all that, the original vocalist did a one-take run-through similar to like what I just did. It's very interesting to watch her mouth shapes. I don't know, like, it kind of reminds me of those, those Sesame Street Yip Yip Martian guys, when her main tone, she's like doing a, how do you... I can't do it with my mouth. I don't know. She has a very triangle-shaped mouth. Like, if you have a look at that, she's obviously figured out that that's the mouth shape she needs to make to get the tone she wants. I think if I did that and I saw myself in the mirror, I would be cracking up too much to like sing anymore. But hey, do what works for you. I'm kind of glad I don't need that mouth shape to get the tone I want. I can't help but giggle. I mean, it works for her, and her technique seems solid and all that, but I'm just like, oh my god, I can't do... I don't know, and I think her mouth, like, physically is bigger than mine. I'm stuck with the small anatomy and all that. That's, well, probably one of the reasons I have to false chord is because I'm so tiny that even if I learn to fry better, it's probably never going to have the right tone because I'm just so small. That's one of my worries. No one's been able to explain to me how to turn my shitty fry into a good fry, so for now I'm just assuming I'm stuck with shitty fry no matter what I do. But yeah, no, mouth shapes... I don't know if it's a fry screen thing, but for false chord, I feel like it's easier to get the tone without your mouth being too crazy, unless you're doing extreme stuff like the extreme lows. Like for me, a chick my size going that low, you kind of have to look super ugly like that. But it kind of like in a way that makes sense. You can sort of get it in a different way by like shifting your mouth in that way instead of just tiny. I don't know, there's different ways to do it, but yeah, you can experiment with mouth shapes, and with the highs, you're sort of opening up more, if that helps. But yeah, the Yip Yip Martian thing, I can't unsee it. I'm sorry, I know, like, probably I upset some people by maybe making fun of that a little bit. I don't mean to make fun of it, it's just a thing that I noticed. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the point being, when you're looking at vocalists you like, check out their mouth shapes because maybe you'll be able to get their tone a bit more if you copy some of that. But yeah, I don't have any desire to copy that particular one. And also, maybe it's a fry screaming thing, so maybe it's not relevant to me as a false chord girl. Anyway, yeah. What else have I written here? Let me just have a quick look. Actually, no, I think we've covered everything. So, yeah, I guess to sum up, like, wait, no, I do have something to add. I've just been listening to the audio, and this is something that I noticed, like, previously on my other microphone. So it's not a microphone issue. If you listen to my growls, you can just hear, like, this sort of clean note, and it's sort of like, stand to the left of me, like that is just coming through the growls. And so, like, I'm hoping that it's the right pitch for the thing. It's not something I do consciously, it's just something I noticed and kind of interesting. Annoys me a little bit that you can hear that much of it if you're focusing. I don't know what your speakers are like, but for me, on all my speakers, my monitors, my headphones, I can hear it. Doesn't matter which microphone I'm using. So yeah, interesting. I'll listen to like what the camera's shitty audio picked up, but I think it's actually a thing in my voice. And so when they talk about false chords still having a sort of pitch, even when you're not really pitching, like, you know, you can do high and low growls, but it's meant to be more like white noise, creating the illusion of it. But there is a little bit of a pitch there coming through, and I'm not sure if that's from my vocal cords themselves or the shape of my body, or like maybe I am sort of subconsciously pitching it, but that's there if you listen hard enough. And back to the thing. Actually, no, I think we've covered everything. So yeah, I guess to sum up, like, false chord fry, this is sort of the differences. Obviously, like, if you're there are other girls who do false chord who might have a different tone to me, so if they're covering this, it might sound different again. And then there's people who seem to be able to do like sort of somewhere in between both of them. So like, I think Ginger maybe does something that combines fry and false chord. Like, when I've listened to some of her more raw ones, not that, like, I know there's that Pisces one that's live, but it doesn't actually sound live to me. If you watch some of their really old stuff and listen to her tone in that, to me it really sounds like I can hear aspects of fry and aspects of false chord, and I'm just like, has she worked out how to put them together and that's how she gets her tone? Interesting stuff. So like, everyone's gonna sound a little bit different, but you know, fry and false chord are probably the like more extreme ends. But yeah, fry itself like has so many things. Like, there's that crappy fry that I do, there's whistle fry, there's that more intense fry that the original vocalist does, and then for false chord you've got like the breath distortion, the grittier one, people who advocate throat singing as a method, and then you can sort of combine them, like all these different sounds. It's a lot of fun. So when you're doing songs, like, yeah, you can emulate what the original does, but sometimes it's fun to do it your own way and just get a different perspective. But the limitation is things like, for me, the limitation on this sort of thing would be the length of the breath, because I have a limit doing false chord, especially as a tiny chick. Like, I'm probably like 52 kilos, I'm tiny. So me trying to sing some of these things is a challenge. But yeah, I think I did this one okay. I only just started to lose a few, but yeah, wow, the amount of like, you can see physically in it. I only briefly watched the video back, but you can see I'm sort of like, raw, like I have to really put some effort in there to get some of it. Whereas for like a fry screamer, maybe there's less of that you have to do. But yeah, no, fun to try it your own way, as long as you like check the limits. Like, if you're, it's a similar thing with clean singing, you check like the range, because I mean, you can learn to expand your range, and I've learned to expand my range over time, but there are some songs that'll just sound better if I change the key instead of being stubborn and trying to do it that way. I think with growling and screaming, a little bit harder, because like, it's not a key thing, it's like a breath and a tone and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, song choice is important. I wouldn't have tried this one if I didn't, you know, do a run through and think, okay, I can pull off my version of this. But yeah, no, I think that was okay, but I'm curious what you guys think if you've seen the original, if you've listened to the original and then listened to my version with false chord. I'm going to assume you can hear the difference and all that, and then, you know, what do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I know there's a lot of opinions about different things. For me, I think false chord is not as popular a style. Maybe I'm imagining it, but I feel like most female metal vocalists, at least, I feel like most girls go for fry scream. It's sort of a gentler technique, whereas false chord, like you can feel it takes a lot more out of you, and it's a bit more of an aggressive kind of thing. And then I think, like, even more broadly in metal, for the more popular genres of metal, I feel like fry screaming's more popular. Like, you hear a lot of guys doing it. That's another thing. If you're a guy covering these girl songs, you would get a different tone again. But yeah, no, I feel like even in male metal vocals, fry screaming's more popular. I feel like false chord is more of a, maybe death metal kind of thing, and I sort of worry sometimes if that's getting in the way of me finding a band. I am still looking for a band. It's just like I'm tired of people asking me to do pop punk. I want to do metal, not fucking pop punk. Like, yes, I can sing clean, but when you throw in a growl, like even if it's the type of pop punk-ish or like more mainstream metal that has screams, my scream just, it doesn't have the right tone. I mean, I guess I could do it anyway, but whether it really suits the music, I know as a vocalist I should have a massive ego and just get myself out there, but I also studied like as a producer, never done anything with it, but I put my producer hat on and I think, is this really the best sound for the music? And often I come up with no. That was one of the problems with that black metal band I joined, is like, even if I did like this music, which I didn't like their new direction, it sounded to me more like it suited fry screaming, and even like, some of the stuff they were messing with, I was just like, I'm not going to be able to pull it off. So, and they already had a guitarist who has a really good fry scream. I think when they lost their old vocalist, they really just panicked and was like, "Oh, we got to find someone." But they had a vocalist right there, and it fit with a new style of music. So they didn't really need me. That's my producer hat sabotaging my attempts to be in a band. Anyway, no. Sometimes I do worry that my false chord is a bit too over the top for a lot of bands, including ones that I would be interested in. And I just worry, is this I'm still trying to learn fry, but I don't think it'll ever be my main technique. And so I've just got to find the right group who make the music I like, make music that suits my growls as well as my cleans, and we all get along. And they live in Sydney because I'm stuck in Sydney. There's so much going on, and I'm just like, at some point, maybe I give up on the whole band thing and start writing my own music again. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but for the moment, maybe I just stick to covers and keep the skills up and keep developing. Like, when I did This Fire Burns, I did get some people asking me to cover Ginger, and at the time, there's no way I could have done it. I was just like, because I was still on the more breath distortion one. I hadn't really gotten the hang of the grittier one. Whereas now I feel like I'm getting closer to being able to cover Ginger, but I don't think I'm there yet. Also, with her clean singing, I'm pretty sure her range is not the same as my range, so I'm never gonna sound like that. But I feel like I'm maybe getting closer to a point where I could do it my way. But yeah, no, it's just like even though I haven't found a band in all that time, I have been making progress. And I think, like, if I if I can't find a band to, like, I've done some auditions, but being in that black metal band for a little bit helped. But I think if I have goals like recording covers, Mandi asking me to do this finally gave me a kick up my butt to actually do stuff. So maybe I do more covers if you want to suggest stuff, but it is going to have to fit within my vocal limits and just maybe push the edge of it. I don't want to jump straight into something like Ginger when I'm still developing other parts of my voice. Anyway, that's my ramble. It went longer than I meant to because I'm trying to figure out what should I say this time. But I hope you liked my version of Holy Roller by Spiritbox, and I guess I'll see you next time.